Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us for the segment, we have Ross Iverson, co-founder and chief investment officer at Manna, to discuss how inflation is impacting the nutritious food sector and consumer spending behavior. Ross, it's great to see you as always. Welcome back to Trade Talks.
Yeah, thanks. I'm looking forward to this topic.
And Ross, how has the nutritious food sector been impacted by inflation, with grocery prices at their highest since 1979 when you factor in inflation?
Yeah, I mean, we're going through this transformation that I think we've never seen from the consumer before, which is nearly 85% of consumers are now looking at the healthfulness of what they're purchasing. And 55% of these consumers are looking at paying a premium for food that is adding to their health.
With consumers looking at prices at the supermarket more diligently than before, how can these companies stay afloat?
Yeah, I think a lot of these companies are putting in innovations. Scale is obviously something that we do as an investor to get these businesses past that critical point where they can provide healthy food and at good cost structure. And we've seen obviously supply chain issues, transportation costs going up this year, but businesses are starting to put in some very unique things. We've got one business that we work with that's a tech-enabled logistics company, and they make it easier for small restaurants to order their products. So not only does it make it more profitable for these small restaurants, but the business that we're invested in has the ability to scale very quickly by providing a more cost-competitive structure.
Can you provide examples of what the portfolio companies at Manna is working with, what you're doing to address these challenges?
Yeah, another great example is Gotham Greens, which is an indoor agriculture company that we've backed. And, this is a business that does the same thing of growing lettuce in California and Arizona. They do it across the country in over 1 million square feet now. And they're using 95% less land and 95% less water to produce that same head of lettuce. But what's really key here is they're doing it with less labor as well. And we all know the labor markets have been a big part of this inflationary piece. And to be able to produce this with technologies in a greenhouse format and reduce the carbon footprint of getting that lettuce onto your plate, it's like the perfect marriage of how do you get healthy food at a good competitive price with a good cost structure.
Yeah, I mean, not only wage inflation, but, not to mention attracting talent to come and work in positions such as that. Ross, what do you see in the sector as we look forward to 2023?
Yeah, I think every family right now, as we tracked, is looking at their family budget, right? And if you look at, inflation in food being up nearly over 11% last month, that's obviously not as high as energy costs. But what we look at really is how are these families going to adapt when they start looking at their healthcare costs of nearly being $5,500 per year per American right now for out of pocket versus this investment in their food and in their health. And I think every family is realizing, whether they have children with allergies, with intolerances, that food is the backbone of living a good lifestyle. And I think that when you see a family's budget go into 2023, I think they're going to be comparing their food budget with the travel budget, with buying electronics, with upgrading that vehicle. And I think for the first time ever, what we're seeing is food is becoming part of somebody's personal identity and a way for them to manage quality of life like we've never seen it. And we're not really worried about spending as far as the price points of the portfolio companies that we own, because we're seeing continued traction with consumers wanting food that benefits their health.
And Ross, I'm going to ask you one more question on that. We saw over the past at least 2 decades, more specifically 13, 14 years, an enormous amount of wealth creation as a result of the stock market going from, the bottom of the chart all the way to the top of the right. Real estate prices, of course, as everyone knows, have certainly been inflated as well. That also coincides with the types of fads and trends that we've seen in food, more organic, more of those higher price type of items that lend to their personal identities, as you mentioned before. Do you think holistically overall that could impact the growth of the industry? Should we see, we're seeing it right now with that wealth creation being dialed back a bit. Do you think that could impact that segment of the food sector?
For sure. I mean, recent data that we've just have been looking at from July shows that consumers that are making over a household income of $200,000 a year are less likely to switch where they do their grocery shopping. And so, again, if you're going to continue to go to the same stores, you're going to continue to resonate with those same brands, that we think that that'll hold up really well. I think the difference that we're seeing is that maybe consumers are looking at more frozen goods over the last 60 to 90 days, knowing that food waste is also a way of wasting money. You're throwing out some of that fresh food. And again, you can still get good, healthy frozen food as well in the grocery store. So all of these trends, I think, are going to be a little bit of short term, but we also know that the retailers have gotten really aggressive with price increases. And we've also heard that it's maybe too aggressive and that we might see some pullback. I think a lot of people are expecting kind of a boomerang effect with this inflation where things could pull back quite sharply. I think the one thing that we see with food is this is a mass transformation. Gone are the days of people just looking at the back of the label and saying sugars, protein. They're now looking into the 25 ingredients that might be in a product and realizing that they've really got to clean up the products that they're purchasing. And the retailers are doing a great job of offering these new products to the consumer.
All right, Ross, we appreciate the insight as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.